Welcome to the Fran Snyder Podcast, where I talk to artists and music fans to explore how music connects us through great stories and experiences. Brought to you by the Listening Room Network. Today's guest, Veach. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Fran?
Great. So you're coming today from Fort Myers Beach.
I am where all the tourists are.
Yeah, well, we got a handful up here in St. Petersburg as well. But it's good to finally connect with you. I guess we'll talk a little bit about your travels, your songwriting, your music, and your involvement with the Americana Community Music Association, a wonderful organization based in Fort Myers. So let's start with where you're from and where were you? How old were you when music became a serious thing for you?
I was born in Colorado. And when I was in fourth grade, they had a musical aptitude thing. And I was told I should learn how to play piano. But I was a young boy and I wanted to bang on drums. So I took up the drums. That carried me through like high school and then college. And I was in a band in college. And I kind of discovered that when you have a full drum set and you're moving into different apartments and things, you tend to get the stink eye a lot. And it was not a very portable, a lot of work, took up a lot of space. So I decided to take up guitar, spend $100 of my precious beer money for a really terrible guitar.
What kind of guitar was it? Do you remember?
It was a knockoff of a Gibson Firebird, I think, Hummingbird. Like, the red thing with the hummingbird on the thing. But it was all my more seasoned guitar player friends couldn't stand it because the neck had kind of a really sharp ridge down the back.
Yeah, I remember those. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly playable, but for me at that stage in my career, well, my experience, it was good enough.
It wasn't playable, but it was portable.
Yeah, it was portable, and I wasn't doing, I was playing guitar like a drummer, which meant a whole lot of strums and a very few chord changes.
Yeah.
But then I played guitar for a while fairly seriously, but then I got busy with work and career and school and other things, and I didn't own a guitar for probably 15, 20 years. And then I finally got more time in my life, and I went out and picked up a guitar, and that was just playing for myself. Really, when I first came to Florida 11 years ago, I got involved in the ACMA, the singer-songwriter circle, and that really got me getting more involved in songwriting. And then because of them and some friends through the ACMA with the Pearl Street Band, I really started to, for the first time, learning how to sing into a microphone. Because if you haven't done it, it's really disorienting.
Right.
Your voice sounds so different. So that's been a fairly recent thing the last, 5 years, maybe 6 years.
Yeah. So did you have a business career for most of your life, or?
Yes. I'm an electrical engineer. I have an electrical engineering technology degree and a computer science degree. And a long time ago, I answered an ad for a company that inspects oil pipelines. And as in a lot of careers, once you have experience in one field, you're more more valuable there, and you tend to get into a rut. And so I was in pipeline inspection for a while until I actually started my own company doing it, and then sold that and moved to Florida.
So you moved to Florida after selling your business, is that right?
Yeah, I moved to Wyoming and then to Florida.
How long have you been in Florida?
11 years.
Okay. And so your first introduction to the ACMA, how did that happen?
I think I went to a concert and I heard about the singer-songwriter circle. At the time, I think it was Bill Metz was running it. And it was just, a really very supportive collaboration of people of all kinds of skills. I mean, there were people who played limited guitar but sang really well. There were people who played amazing guitar and had limited vocal range, and then people who had the entire package. And it was very, people would have an open discussion about songs you're working on and provide useful tips and sometimes effective criticism, necessary criticism.
Nice. And then before you moved to Fort Myers, had you experienced anything like this, songwriting community, musicians community in any of the other cities that you lived in?
Not in Colorado or Utah, where I spent a lot of time. There were performing singer-songwriters, local people that I'd go to a lot of the concerts, but there wasn't really that community thing. In Cheyenne, Wyoming, where we lived right before coming here, there was the Cheyenne Guitar Society, and they would meet once a month. But it wasn't really songwriting. There were some people who wrote songs, It was a variety of performers. Chet Atkins' nephew used to come up from Fort Collins with a guitar that was given to him by Johnny Smith. You know, and there was, again, it was all over the map. People who were very professional and some people who were just starting out.
Tell me a little bit about the gigs that you're doing in Fort Myers. Like, what would be your favorite gig down there that you're doing on a piece?
You know, of course, things have frozen for a little while and mostly virtual for the last year. I'm now fully vaccinated, and some of the guys I play with are fully vaccinated. So we're looking at getting out before people spread for the summer. With the Pearl Street Band, which is Bob Williams, Mike McMillan, and Clark Johnson, we played at an ice cream shop here for a while. We were doing that weekly, which is pretty fun. You know, I remember Robert Earl Keen going to Nashville and telling a story about how he had to do, he had to go and audition for an open mic that was going to come weeks away. And then he'd say that in Austin, he played at a hot dog stand. So I kind of felt like it was pretty good company playing in an ice cream shop. And there's lots of cafes here. There's the Tuckaway, which is a really nice little locally run place where we started working last year. And then a lot of charity events. So we did a lot of things for, you know, for at Lover's Key, like we did, you know, of course, ACMA shows. And we got to be known that, you know, when you want a band for a charity, the Pearl Street Band was welcome to come play for you.
Nice. Who would you say are the best mentors in Fort Myers in terms of musicians that are giving back and helping up and coming folks? Is that something that you've got a clear feeling on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, that certainly helped me. You know, I have to go back to the beginning with Bill Metz and Bruce. You know, they were always very attentive with the singer-songwriter, you know, guitar circle or singer-songwriter circle. Playing a lot with Mike McMillan. He's a very accomplished musician. We have a lot of good conversations and a lot of discussions about things. But a lot of these guys are more collaborators, like Clark Johnson on bass. We, especially with this COVID, he was far away, but we managed to electronically collaborate on some songs for my new CD coming out. You know, and all the guys who pretty much run that singer-songwriter circle, that's what they're doing. They're mentoring people.
So let's talk about this online collaboration. What do you use? What gear are you using? What's the process for you in terms of sending ideas back and forth, or you know, audio files, that kind of stuff?
Well, with Clark, what I do is, you know, he's a bass player, and you know, he's a very experienced gentleman too. So I would usually come up with a song. Sometimes it's a song idea, and I'd send it to him, and he would lay down a bass track. Sometimes the song is fairly well developed, and he would just lay down whatever track he wants, and then send me the WAV file or an MP3. Bass is fairly easy to transfer. You know, it's not like a well-mic'd acoustic guitar or vocals, which tends to be a little tricky. We've had a couple of songs where I really just had a vague idea and I sent it off to him. We went back and forth.
But when you send it off to him, are you just sending him an MP3 file from some music software that you have, or are you using a service where you can kind of go back and forth? Or
I'm just sending him an MP3 file because I use Pro Tools, and he uses another package. So that's the only way to really go back and forth. We did do Kazam for a while, although then he moved down and it was kind of unnecessary to. So
tell me what Kazam, how Kazam worked for you, and how does that improve the process?
Well, Kazam, it's the basic idea with it is, that it has a low latency. It's kind of like a low latency Zoom. So you can sit there and play with somebody, and there's a low enough latency where you can play together.
Oh, okay.
Without having some big delay. Still doesn't compare to being in person. It's been interesting. The other guy who I work a lot with is Roy Snyder. Mm-hmm. He helps me with the CDs, and he's more of the finish guy. So I'll come up with, you know, a guitar, vocals track, maybe a backup, and then I'll send it to him, and he'll, you know, finish with the percussion and whatever, you know.
Have you done any recording at his place, or is it still mostly just sending files?
I first did recording at his place, and that was, again, a real learning curve. That's when the first time you listen to yourself and you realize, boy, I really speed up on this part, or, you know, every little flaw in playing kind of shows up in a recording, and you get really picky about it. But I think with recording, I've become a better player because it's been that, you know, that introspective process where you really have to listen to yourself and understand what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, learning how to write for your voice and write for your ability it's a challenge that doesn't get addressed very much in workshops, in in music education. I particularly tune into that because it was a real challenge for me in my own career. I was always writing songs at the top of my vocal range and at the edge of my guitar playing ability because I like to challenge myself. But it took me a long time to learn that, watching a music performance should not be like watching figure skaters where they could have a disastrous fall at any moment. If you are enjoying this podcast, can you pause for a moment to like, review, and subscribe? Please help the world discover our music community and the wonderful artists we support. Your feedback makes a difference.
That's kind of an interesting thing you say that, because I'm the same. My wife, she's got a really good ear, and she lets me know when something is off when she's listening to a recording. And she likes my voice in the higher end of my register. And I've been told, people say that you should always sing as high as you can, but no higher, right? But as far as the guitar playing too, I like to try to play things, and I'm really all over the map as far as genres. Everything from simple 12-bar blues to some more complicated, finger picking patterns and time signatures, just because it's fun. But then, like you say, you record it and you go, yeah, I'm really having a hard time pulling that one part off, How
else has this year challenged you and changed your day-to-day life with COVID? Obviously, there's the obvious stuff, but in terms of music, are you writing more? Or are you?
I wrote a lot last year. I'm actually, and I've trying to be disciplined and write less, and it's maybe more craft or just practice more of my old songs, that kind of things. But I really enjoy the songwriting so much. And my songwriting has changed. So a lot of my songwriting now is more introspective. It's more nostalgic because it's kind of the world we're living in. There aren't a lot of new adventures and new people to write about. So you kind of rely on, on memories and nostalgia.
And tell me a little bit about how you went up in the Fort Myers Beach area. So tell me, were you looking for beach property when you moved down here, or did you just find the perfect house?
Where we lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, there wasn't really much of a housing boom because, it's not the place that people go to retire. It's in a rolling hills part of Wyoming where the wind blows all the time, and there's not a lot of demand. People who live there tend to work there, and it's a fairly steady real estate market. We were looking for an investment. We came down here because we knew that Fort Myers was the epicenter of the foreclosure crisis back in 2008, 2010.
Oh, yeah.
And so we came down and got a really great house that we would not have been able to afford otherwise. And we're still here.
So you say I guess you've been married a long time?
Yeah, 33 years.
Okay. Congrats. Did you raise kids down there or before you came to Florida?
No, we didn't have kids. The good Lord in his infinite wisdom decided that we shouldn't procreate.
Well, I've been able to enjoy an extended adolescence for much the same reason, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people I've been good friends with, and especially when they have, when the fathers have boys that they get into things that they wish they would have when they were his age, just because now they have an excuse,
right.
Go-kart racing and that kind of stuff. And I have a friend who lived next door to me. He wanted to really learn how to play guitar, and he bought himself a nice Martin guitar. And then when his son came of age, he just kind of took it over and was playing at, bluegrass festivals and, this kind of stuff. So, he had to live vicariously through his son.
Tell me a little bit about your major influences as a songwriter. Is there a song that you look at as the E equals MC squared of songwriting? What, if you had to pick the perfect song or the perfect songwriter, who would that be, or what song would that be?
Boy, it would probably be more like a Frankenstein thing, like someone who had the lyrical ability of a John Prine. You can play guitar like a variety of different sources, like a Keb Mo.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many genres out there. And still I played in a rock and roll band when I was in college. So, even though I'm playing an acoustic guitar, still inside me, I like to crank up an amp. And
so in those formative years though, we all have sort of those, those iconic bands from our youth that, for me, it was Rush, and
Yeah.
I think there's something about that age, like 14 to 18 or 14 to 16, when you really just connect the most deeply with the music of your time. Like, what were you listening to back then?
It's funny because I would just get a little sidebar here. Is I wrote a song about that. I wrote a song about how, everybody seems to think that when the music when they grew up was the best music ever, when it's really almost the coming of age thing. I guess maybe the first time you were, making out with a girl, whatever song was playing on the radio then had a special feeling for you. But yeah, I think when I used to really like Joe Walsh and the drummer Joe Vitale, because he had a way of being very minimalist with his drum playing, but really adding to the song. I learned a lot about how to play even guitar. Just, you give people hints when there's a change coming. You don't need to dominate for it. And the guitar playing of Joe Walsh.
Refresh my memory. Joe Vitale played drums for
Joe Walsh. He also played for like some of the Eagles early things. Dan Goldberg. Some of the bluegrassy things like Nitty Gritty Dirt Band was really big in Colorado. The Jimi Hendrix. And I for a while I played with some guys who were into punk, so we were into Joe Jackson and things like that. So
nice.
Still, but I was always amazed. I've always been a bit of a writer. I was the editor of a small college paper and worked on my high school paper and wrote local stories here about the environment for our local papers, and a really good lyricist. Like John Prine's, your flag decal won't get you into heaven anymore. He says so much with so few words, and it doesn't come off as being even preachy necessarily. It's just, it's poetry really.
Yeah. So what's coming up next for you musically? What are you working on now? And do you have are you trying to schedule shows for summer and fall, or?
Probably about ready to get back into it now. Things are slowing down here, which in some ways is the best time to play out because you're helping the local businesses kind of get through an off season. Although so far we're still waiting for the off season to happen here. It's been pretty busy. But Mike is back from a trip. I'm here for a little while. And so maybe we'll get out and play some. I know we're going to get together and practice. What I'm doing for recording this time now is I'm trying something a little different. Instead of coming up with a CD and then releasing the CDs, because, CDs are almost like, 8-track tapes anymore. I mean, it's a lot of people can't play a CD. And if I want to play a CD, I think I have to, rip it down and put it on a jump drive or something. And I don't really have much to play that. But just the idea of coming up with a collection of work is still kind of ingrained in my old, album playing days, when you commit to 10, 12 songs by a particular band when you buy an album. Now the world is changing. So I'm releasing songs one at a time as I get them. And then when I get a big enough collection, I'm still going to make a CD because I just feel like that's, that's the mile marker.
Right. It's like the document. Are you putting them up on Bandcamp or a particular website? Or?
Yeah, I'm using Reverbnation. And I also, put the link out on Facebook. It's kind of nice to be able to see what attention you're getting. And that's been interesting, but it's, I think that when I come up with a CD, I also release it on the streaming platforms, and the one song at a time, I really haven't done that.
Okay. And tell me about Reverbnation. I haven't checked in on that in over a year or two. What's your sense of that platform? Is it still growing? Is it stagnant? Is it just improving? Or
I don't see, it seems like the only plays I really seem to get there are ones that I drive to it. It isn't like it's someone coming, it isn't like someone's coming up in a mix for Pandora or iHeart Radio or
right. You're not getting on playlists and that kind of stuff.
Not that I really know of. It's nice that everything's tracked and they give you a lot of metrics about how you're doing, and it's nice that what the part of it I use is kind of just a free service. What I would really like to do, I haven't found a way you put any information on a track saying that Clark Johnson played bass on this track, and Roy Snyder played percussion on this track. It's just your song. Right. And then, it'd be nice if they just had a link. So if they like it's like we used to do when we were a kid, you'd listen to a song, you're looking at the album jack and you go, now who played guitar on this? And then you can go and say, oh, I like that. I'll go and, listen to that guy. Now I was just listening to this really interesting podcast this guy does he's a music teacher out of Atlanta. And he was saying how with the kids now, he's about our age. When the kids now, they had like 200 favorite songs that they all said liked in his classes. And he said out of that, there was like 180 different bands. So it isn't like, everybody likes certain 5 or 6 bands. Now people they'll be listening to Spotify or something, and they hear a song they've never heard before and they like it. They hit like, and they get more songs like that. And it just, and they're listening to songs from the 50s through modern times. It's like so wide open now about what music people can listen to.
Yeah, the access is just unbelievable, and you can have a really wide swath of exposure to different genres and all that.
And I think the music too has kind of really evolved. There's so many different influences. Like you take someone like me, I played blues and kind of country and the standard Americana stuff, and some kind of pop stuff, because I'm exposed to all those things. And if you think about a kid who's like in high school now, in 2021, and he's listening to a song, an R&B song from the 50s, that would be like us in the 70s listening to a song before World War I.
Right.
So it's really amazing how what the range of music that's available to people.
Yeah. Well, Bill, it's a pleasure to chat with you a little bit, and hopefully we'll see you next time I'm down in Fort Myers. We'll link to your stuff in the show notes, and until next time, take care, and hope to see you soon.
And everybody out there, be safe. And I think going to small house concerts and small venues is a really great way to get out there and still do it in a safe way.
Thanks, Bill. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Fran Snyder Podcast. Please subscribe, like, or share to help your friends discover this community. Also, I'd love to hear from you with any feedback or suggestions you have. And if you'd like to learn more about house concerts and listening rooms around the world, please visit and join listeningroomnetwork.com. You can email me from there. See you next time on the Fran Snyder Podcast.